And we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Best Phone Plans Podcast. Joining me today, we have Liron Lerman from KreatAR and Elena Piech, the Senior Marketing Manager from the Glimpse Group. So great to have you both with us here today. Can you kind of talk about what KreatAR is, some of the projects that you work on, and how that all works?
Absolutely. So I started KreatAR about 4 years ago after falling in love with augmented reality. I find myself working with many people creating the augmented reality apps, and most of the people had pretty much the same idea. Everybody wanted to take some printed material, if it's a brochure, if it's a poster, and supplement it with additional media such as audio, video files, some text, some interaction. To create their augmented reality presentation. When I met with Liron Lerman, the CEO of the Glimpse Group, I told him everybody wants to do the same, augmented reality presentations. Think about PowerPoint, good old Keynote, but in augmented reality.
Okay, and could you take a moment to describe what augmented reality is to some of our listeners right now? I think it's such a cool technology, but it's also so cutting edge that some people may be less familiar with it.
Absolutely. I'm sorry for jumping ahead of myself. I mean, augmented reality really became popular only like 2 years ago after Nintendo released the Pokemon Go game. This is when people first were like, "Whoa, I got it." But there's been augmented reality experiences way before Pokemon Go, and I think Niantic only like took it to the level of enhancing the audience level that this thing exists and it's real and we can connect it to GPS location and put monsters in any park and create a large game, right? Citywide games.
Yeah, it kind of
really
brought
exciting.
it to the masses where everyone could tangibly experience it. What do you remember as like one of your first AR experiences?
My very first augmented reality experience was a video I came across on YouTube of
Sesame Street?
yeah, and they had
Wow.
Ernie and Vance, and they were placed on a special board, and the board had all this crazy stuff on it. Later, I understood that this is actually the anchor on it. And every time they put either Ernie and Vance, the whole scene became alive. It was like a disco scene, and I was really excited by it. And actually, then met with people at Sesame Workshop who were directly working on it. And that was my first AR exposure. I fell in love with the technology, and Vuforia, now a company called PTC, really made it simple for everybody to integrate when they build Unity apps. And at that point, I decided to turn my master thesis in game design to an augmented reality version of it, which ultimately is an augmented reality board game where all the people are pointing their phones at the board and see hidden information, right? Information that they only relevant to them and their player in a competitive form.
That's amazing. I actually did a project like that at Ithaca. I made it so you would scan the Catan, the Settlers of Catan box, and you
Cool.
would see all of the pieces kind of pop out in 3D space, and you can move your phone around and see them. So that's really, really cool. You're able to take what you were learning in game development, bring that to AR, and create new interactive experiences for people. How about you, Elena? What was one of your first AR experiences?
Yeah, well, I think my first augmented reality experience was probably the filters that were on Snapchat. You know, the dog face or puking the rainbow clouds. And I just definitely had a lot of fun sending filtered content to people. And like Liron's brought up with Pokemon Go, when that game first came out, I remember downloading it and spending the summer trying to hunt down Pokemon and struggling to bike and hunt down Pokemon at the same time because it's really hard to do while you're biking. And I just saw AR as something that was going to continue to grow and something that wasn't a gimmick. And you can really see how a lot of the mobile phone companies are really investing in using this technology. I think in 2017, when Apple made ARKit something that was public for developers to use, that really increased AR adoption. And now you're seeing the iPhone 12 that just came out a couple months ago. The iPhone 12 Pro has the lidar scanner on it, which can make even more immersive and interactive augmented reality experiences. And so really it's just going to continue to get better and better. And I think we'll move away from AR feeling like a gimmick to really, we'll eventually reach a state where we can't imagine living in a world that didn't have augmented elements to it.
So
yeah.
So yeah, it's you brought up the iPhone 12 with the new release and the lidar sensor, but we've also seen a lot of the mobile manufacturers make a big focus on their SoCs and implementing a neuro engine to try to help out with like AI and different things like that. What is that new hardware advancement allowing you guys to do in the AR space that you couldn't have previously done because the technology wasn't there?
So the technology is not really new. The technology has been around for a while. Maybe you remember the first Xbox came up with a special camera called Kinect.
I do remember that, yes.
So the Kinect actually had a lidar, a very crude lidar in it. The idea of a lidar is that it blasts infrared dots and then measures the time of flight. So it really knows what is the distance of the object that it collided with based on the size of the object itself. And this is how we used to do all the gestures in front of the Xbox, and that used to be interpreted into your body rig. Then Google did a lot of work around it. It's called the Google Tango project that was discontinued at some point. My theory was always that maybe they did it on the software level, and they no longer need to spend all this energy in blasting infrared dots all over the place. Because they now can analyze the image in one time to determine those dots and the position of the user relatively to the world. And then they discontinued it. It was a big surprise. And now all of a sudden, Apple that bought PrimeSense, which is the company that developed the Kinect camera, and now integrated lidar into their own phones. And this is really, really the future. The implications of the lidar are way beyond augmented reality. It's going to really enhance all the world of photography and video taking and take that to the next level. Yeah.
Yeah, so what are some of the things you're able to do with this additional, more accurate depth data that you're getting from the lidar sensor? How does this enable like new AR experiences that are better for users?
Yeah, I think one example that quickly comes to mind is things feel more immersive and just more interactive. There is this hologram company called 8i, and in 2017 they released an app called Holo, where you could see these lifelike holograms, and they paired up with influencers and big media companies. They even did some promos for the new Spider-Man movie with Tom Holland, and a lot of people said, oh wow, these holograms look cool, but they just don't feel believable. And so the example, there was a Verge article that says, I put Spider-Man in my coffee cup, but then when I actually moved the camera, moved the coffee cup, Spider-Man didn't move with it. And what lidar really does is it's recognizing the objects that are in the environment. So no longer does it just feel like a digital element that's overlaid on top of your camera, but really it's recognizing what your environment looks like. So maybe Liron was talking about Sesame Street. Maybe we could see something where instead of just having an Elmo figurine that just stands there, maybe a child could actually sit with Elmo. It would recognize the couch, or it might recognize another object. And so it just leads to a whole new level of interactivity and engagement.
Yeah, that's really sweet. That's super exciting. I think one of the things I've seen is recognizing foreground and background, and if an object has like a hole in it, being able to reach your arm through the hole and seeing the front part of the object maintain its space and structure, and you being able to just like interact with the AR experience, which is really cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I was looking at KreatAR, and it looks like you offer kind of 3 different services: post-reality, locate AR, and Tinkernote. Would you want to talk to what those different things are and how they kind of create different AR experiences for like different projects, or that people can experience when they're interacting with brands or different media content?
Absolutely. So the first product we came up with in KreatAR was called Tinkernote. It's still around. It's on the app stores. You're welcome to download it. The idea of it is to make augmented reality useful. And the way I found it to be useful is by me sending gifts to my sister in Germany that she can then open in her own space as if I shipped it to her in FedEx, and for her to view it in her own living room or bedroom or wherever she is, as if I sent her a physical gift. The idea of Tinkernote was to actually curate a small message that could be wrapped inside a box, and you can just like deploy it anywhere. The box opens and you have all of the curation, if it's animals or text or audio files. Everything is in there in a very gamified form. After TinkerNote, I decided to take it to a more serious place, right? We started to work with a lot of neuroscientists who came to us and told us that poster presentations are a little bit stuck, right? It's been the same poster presentation in the last 20, 30 years. A researcher is writing their abstract and preparing the poster, send it to the print, and then there is the venue day, and there's all those posters on the billboard, and people passing around, asking you comments, asking you for some information about your poster if you happen to be near it. And I told them that I got it. And yeah, it's absolutely asking to be enhanced by augmented reality. So instead of just sending messages, very casual messages to make somebody happy, in TinkerNote, we took it to a more scientific place where we have thousands of neuroscientists all over the world and research institutions augmenting their poster presentation using post-reality.
Yeah, let me set the scene for that, talking a little bit about post-reality. So Liron comes from this academic background. He got his master's at Columbia University, and with academics all over the world, you know, if they want to progress, do their thesis, or work towards maybe becoming an official professor, they need to do all this research. And what happens is these large academic societies will have their poster presentation sessions where it's halls of hundreds, maybe even thousands of people. And they have these very big posters with this little tiny font explaining what they did on their study. And maybe there's a picture, but that's it. And it's really hard maybe to go up to the poster and understand the full level of how they did the study or how they did their research, or to really picture what that academic is talking about. And so what post-reality does is they can now take this academic poster and add in AR elements. So imagine I could show you a video of what we were doing in the lab, or maybe I showed you the different molecules that I was studying, or maybe instead of me actually having to stand in front of my poster, there could be little audio boxes that you click on and I can narrate what I'm doing. And you could listen to me even if I'm physically not there. And the other really awesome thing is, let's say you like my research and we want to collaborate. Well, now I have a button for you to contact me and we can easily exchange information. And after the session, not only do you have the engagement for the person who is viewing the poster and for the person who is presenting the poster, but afterwards, the person who is presenting their poster can also get data and see who looked at their poster, how long did they look at it, what were they looking at it for. And so it's a really nice way to take this academic world that might sometimes be a little bit, I don't want to say boring, but a little bit boring or hard to understand, and try to make it more engaging, and also the same way have a better form of cross communication where I can contact the people that were looking at my poster, or if somebody wants to contact me and learn more, they can easily do that too.
Yeah, so it sounds like you're taking the AR poster, providing interaction for the viewers, and then also providing these really cool, like almost Google Analytic like tools for the poster creators to get insights in how people were interacting with their project, and just more insights into that area. Exactly.
One of the early feedback I got, I think in 2018, from the Society for Neuroscience, they had a big venue, like the one that Elena described, with 6,000 posters in different aisles and different presenters coming from all over the world. And we did a study case over there where a few of the posters were enhanced. And the thing they told me that really resonated with me, they told me that by us enhancing those posters, the most meaningful thing is the collaboration element of it. It's just what Elena said. The ability of knowing who looked at my poster, how long they looked at my poster, and the ability of reaching out to them later and have this scientific collaboration between the viewer and the presenter. You as a presentation preparer know exactly who looked at it, and you can reach out to them. Something that always comes to them is that they sometimes feel like they're very attacked. They're standing near their poster, and they have like 20 different scientists coming to them, and some of them give them their business cards, and some of them don't, and some of them ask them questions, which they only later in the hotel figured out the answers. Like that, there is really better collaboration, and this is the main goal I'm trying to solve with this tool, is to enable perfect flow of information between the presenter and the people who are enjoying the presentation.
And oh, sorry, Dennis, you can go.
Sorry. I was just gonna say the technology is just incredible. Like I'm actually doing my master's right now at Penn State, and I can tell you how useful that would be, especially now with us working from home. But one of the questions I kind of had is what are some of the challenges though of getting like institutions to adopt this technology? Is it just a matter of education for them to understand about it? Is it a cost issue? Because I don't actually see it either in my corporate life or in my education life right now at the moment. What's kind of slowing the adoption of the technology?
Right. So, and we also live in a completely different reality than 2019 with the Corona outbreak and a lot of conferences like that, where post-reality used to thrive. And now the reality has changed, right? So a lot of people who adopted it before told me, okay, what's next for you? There's no more conferences. How can we change post-reality in such a way that it's still a purposeful tool for us? And what can be done? So I sat with my team, with Elena, the rest of the developers, UX, UI designers, and we thought about creating an enhancement for post-reality where you don't necessarily have to consume the content itself as an augmented reality form. But when you are creating your poster and you are enhancing it, everything is done in 3D environment. And this 3D environment by itself is enhancing the poster enough to pass on information back and forth. Moreover, because everything is on the same screen and you can move around the poster and you can zoom in and out and see the media that usually you would see in augmented reality, we also added a bunch of chat systems where people can leave comments on your poster, and there's again this exchange of information. Yes, there is a button that's going to be hiding all of the media, exposing the poster. So if you were to point at it, you would see it in augmented reality. But for the most part, people are also enjoying watching it in 3D on the screen itself. And soon enough, we're also going to add a VR button. So if you have a VR headset, you would be able to see the poster in 3D.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and I think that that's actually something that we didn't talk about, but we're focusing on the application and the actual use. But the other awesome thing about post-reality is it's really easy to make an AR experience. You don't need any coding knowledge. You simply upload what image you'd use as your target, so the academic poster or some other type of image, and then you can add in your video, your audio, your maybe 3D objects, whatever type of elements to overlay. Now, going back, Dennis, to what you were talking about in terms of adoption, I think, as with a lot of companies, we had a certain plan and trajectory, and then COVID happened, and it really put us in this, oh no, what are we going to do? We were ready for this big rollout to all these academic societies. We had really done our case studies with a couple of different societies and found the successes, and then these live events came to a pause. And so we had to think, what are we going to do to overcome it? And one thing, which Liron was just describing, was the team worked really hard and built a desktop viewer. So even though you're not at the big event looking at all the different posters, you can just pull up the poster on your desktop, take your phone, scan it, and still see the AR elements over there. And I think in terms of adoption, just the big hindrance is mostly dealing a little bit with academic budgets and also moving at the rate of academia, because when you're working with maybe a large enterprise that says, okay, we have a budget for exploratory or innovation, charge it to the card. Universities, they set the budget in the fall, then that's the budget that's in place for maybe the next year or so. And so you really have to get the timing just right. And we're talking to more universities, and even for this spring, we have more universities that want to work with us. But one thing that Liron really, really prides himself on is making post-reality affordable. We get emails all the time where somebody will say, oh, how much does it cost? And Liron will just, whatever the price may be, and they'll just say, oh, really? That's it? Awesome. And I think for the academic standpoint, his team, they really try to make it really affordable, and then it has a different price point for maybe somebody who might be trying to use this product for more of a business, marketing, advertising standpoint.
How are people creating their AR experiences? Like, are you building the tools that allow customers to create and design their own AR spaces? and because it sounds like you're also designing the app and the experience as well. So how does that workflow work if we were to create an AR poster of ourselves?
Absolutely. It's super, super easy. So just like Elena mentioned, my background is in game design. So I always take in account users who are technologically challenged, don't know how to develop, not necessarily designers and have good aesthetics. So the process is pretty much, it's a drag and drop. You start by uploading the content that you would like to augment, let's say a movie poster, right? So you upload that movie poster into the online studio that we have. And then you can choose from a set of media on the right-hand side of the page if you want to add videos to it or audio files, text, links, emails button, all the call to actions. You save it. It generates a QR code for you that you can then go ahead and embed inside your printed material or not. We also have a very enhanced in-house computer vision technology we developed to recognize any poster that was uploaded into our system. We just find that the QR codes are more of like a call to action for the users themselves to know that this has QR, so let me point my phone at it and see what will happen. This is it. You save it, and it's immediately viewable through the Post-Reality app to be viewed. So the moment you look with Post-Reality at the movie poster, it will just like bring up all those elements in the right scale, in the right position, exactly where you left it, and simple as that.
Yeah, I've made promo videos for Post Reality, and it takes me longer to edit the video than it does to actually make the experience.
So something I'm kind of curious about is that a lot of my interaction, I think from what you guys talked about too with AR, has come from either like gaming or through our smartphones. And I just was kind of curious, what industry is kind of like the big push behind this technology? What is the industry that's actually motivating you guys to develop these new types of toolkits and things like that? Is it the gaming sphere that kind of got it all kicked off? Is it, the schools and the businesses that you talked about, Liron? Who's pushing this forward?
My favorite audience, and also the first person who approached me with this, Dr. Daniela Schiller from Mount Sinai. She was the one who told me that the neuroscientists would be the first community to adopt it because they're smart, they're capable, they like new technology, they would come up for the challenge, and she was 100% right with it. I started by enhancing neuroscientific community posters, and slowly it started to spread out to other areas of academia. Right now, we find out that a lot of professors in the linguistics classes like to adopt it as a tool. So they usually prepare like an end of semester class, and every student is uploading their video near their poster research that they did, let's say in Spanish or German, and to see them talking right near the things that they did, and all the rest of the people can come and listen to you, and it's a very engaging and very meaningful experience. So back to your question, Dennis, I want to say academia and the neuroscientific community. We are getting a lot of traction from politicians recently who are sending printed collateral to people's home. And it comes up with a little, hey, point Post-Reality at this, scan this QR code, and you see the politician talking to you in the comfort of your home. We're working with branding agencies and media agencies, and but my
true passion.
My true passion is definitely with the neuroscientists. They always keep on pushing the envelope a little further away. So.
And I was just going to ask, from a development standpoint, is it rather challenging having to develop for so many different types of smartphones and different operating systems? Because a person that's on like a 6-inch screen is going to have a different experience than someone that might be on like a 3.5-inch iPhone 4. So is it challenging to like develop this experience with that wide variety of variants?
It is definitely challenging. I'll tell you more than the screen sizes issue is that a lot of phones, especially the Android phones, are very segmented. Not all of them are AR Core supported, and that can always be an issue because I need AR Core to run my Post-Reality. But now, in the last 2 years, I want to say 90% of the phones in the market do have AR Core. With iOS, since iPhone 6s, everything had ARKit enabled with it. And what ARCore and ARKit is doing is it's a combination of hardware and software, where we're using information from the camera and from the accelerometers into creating a perfect experience. And that goes back to the lidar that Elena talked about before. One of the biggest problems with early or bad phones, right, is the fidelity level. Now, what is the fidelity level? The fidelity level is how convincing the data is, the 3D model is on top of our reality. So let's say, for example, I were to buy a new sofa, and I'm placing the sofa in my living room, and my fidelity is really, really bad. It can be that I'm going to be looking at the object from the left and right, and the object itself is going to drift. And the moment that the object itself starts to drift around, the illusion of a well-anchored AR is breaking. And what lidar is doing, it's making the drifting almost non-existent. So the objects themselves are perfectly placed on top of reality, making the fidelity 100%.
That's interesting. So it sounds like the cameras and the AR core kits built into the smartphones were some of the key components of developing AR. What are some of the limitations that you're seeing today of the AR experiences in terms of what phones can offer, and where do you see this going forward? Do you think all phones will have lidar sensors on them in the future, or how do you think we can create better AR experiences? Would it make sense to build like a dedicated AR device, for example?
It's hard to say if lidars are here to stay. I thought so before when Google Tango phones were coming out, and they had like 3-4 phones in the market, and then they kind of like backed off from it. And but we're definitely going to see more and more augmented reality as part of the user experience. I think it's all going towards phones in 10 years are going to be glasses that you're just going to wear on your face, and that's going to have it all. There's no more us looking at screens like this.
Yeah.
The information is going to overlay perfectly on our glasses, and that's going to be the next generation phone. Possibly my daughter, who is now 2-year-old, going to get one of those for her 16th birthday. But this is definitely where it's painting. But I cannot wait for the future, and we have the here and now. So we're really trying to exploit existing technology, existing phone capacities, at least the average of them. And I always try to build for phones that are 1 or 2 year old, and really pushing the envelope of good rendering and good reflection and good textures, and to make the experience as convincing as if it was physically there on top of reality.
Yeah, and I think that ties into an announcement that was, well, not an announcement, but a product rumor that was leaked today about the upcoming Apple VR headset.
Yeah,
and so it's codenamed N301, and it's rumored to be their own standalone VR headset, and not quite a competitor to Oculus, which is really a consumer-ready VR headset, but something that's more expensive, has a higher price point. Apple expects to sell less of it, but this headset should be a precursor to the AR headset that's rumored to come around the end of 2022, sometime maybe early 2023. And for that, Apple has teams of, I've heard, I think, 1,000 developers that have been working on these headsets. And I really agree with Liron that eventually we're going to reach this future where it will all just be the smart glasses or the smart contact, and everything from calling, watching movies, taking pictures will just be integrated into the device.
So I kind of have a dream. I don't know if you guys have listened to the show, but I kind of have a dream, and I've talked about it before, where we get to the point that things like Google Maps literally show you the direct navigations like on your phone or on the road itself. Like picture like maybe like a car for all good. Yeah. But picture like a car, for example, with like a built-in. Yeah, we can hear you. But picture like a car, for example, where like you have a screen built in that's see-through, like we've seen see-through TVs at CES this year, where you're able to actually put the augmented reality like Google Maps on that car, and you can actually show people the little line on where they need to make the turns. Is that something that's actually feasible, do you guys think, with like today's technology? Like, have you worked with automotive for interesting things like that?
Well, I think that ties into one of the other original companies that Liron had started, which was called KreatAR. Do you want to talk a little bit about that idea?
Absolutely. We have a few patents that are linking geolocation position The idea is pretty much, let's say you're standing in the corner of the street, we know your GPS location. So just to start downloading all of the images of all of the building around you, and we can already see a version of it in Google Maps where you now can just point your camera at any of the buildings surrounding you, and that's going to draw you a virtual line of where you're headed. That is way more accurate than just like a GPS location. But specifically in New York City can be an issue because the buildings are so tall, and there is a lot of valleys created because of them, and bad signal. And then you think you are on 49th Street, but you're actually on 53rd Street, and those things happening all the time. With using imagery, using augmented reality technology for navigation, indoor and outdoors, this is definitely pinpointing you to the millimeter of where you're standing.
That's
Yeah.
incredible. And you mentioned during that explanation about how bad cell phone signal can impact the experience. I just wanted to ask if the new emergence of 5G is changing anything and opening up new pathways for what you can do now with this extra bandwidth and the lower latency. What is 5G doing for you guys in the AR space?
Absolutely. So a lot of those wireless companies are banking off the 5G and promoting themselves, the augmented reality and virtual reality. The link over there is that ultimately our phones, as good and advanced as they are, let's say the iPhone 12 Pro, which is the top notch and so on, has GPU limitation. It's still years from becoming our desktop computers or anything like that. So I think the biggest advantage of 5G over augmented reality would be when people are going to start making pixel streams. You familiar with this concept? Are you familiar with Google Stadia, for example?
Yeah,
I love Google Stadia.
Right. So the whole rendering, the whole images, the whole heavy computation is done on a crazy cloud computer we don't even know where. And all you do is getting the input of how it was ultimately rendered. And that can really take the experience itself to the next level, right? Because we have a GPU farm somewhere handling a perfectly looking picture for you to place in your home. And the computation itself is not necessarily low poly experience that could be unrealistic.
So what is the limitation today? Is it the resolution of the camera sensors? Is it the processing capabilities of the smartphones? Or is it something else that, what would open up new opportunities for you?
Definitely pixel streaming like that from a farm. Then there's already like a bunch of services offered by AWS and Google Cloud to create the rendering itself on their farms and just sending the final image to your device itself. And the phones can only get this good right now.
So shifting a little bit away from AR talk, you'd early also mentioned how you were planning on getting into virtual reality and designing some applications for that. One of my I actually own an HTC Vive, the first generation personally, so I do have some good experience with that. But one of the things that I've noticed is that a lot of developers oftentimes will make a game with HTC Vive in mind or only for Facebook Oculus in mind. And I was just going to ask, is there a reason, like a technical limitation behind it that prevents people from actually just making a universal application that works across all these VR headsets? Is there something that's like missing or required?
There is nothing required. If something is happening is that Oculus is trying to build their own community, so they're tightening it up. But pretty much if a developer is using Unity or Unreal to create a VR experience, they can deploy it on a wide range of devices. There's no limitation per device. You do want to take the frame rate limitation of certain devices in account, the field of view, etc. But overall, you can today build one time using Unity and Unreal and deploy for various accounts.
Yeah, one limitation might be depending on how beefy the development team wants to make their game. And so Half-Life Alyx, which was voted by a lot of different organizations as one of the best VR games of 2020, you need a really powerful PC, you need a really powerful headset. So made by Valve, of course, they're going to make it for the Valve Index and really optimize it for there. But that game is incredible, but it's really, really powerful. And you can't run that on your Quest unless you have thing called a link cable where you plug it into your PC, and really your PC is handling all the processing. So that just might be another consideration, is just how much processing power they want to put into the game and what market might have those headset types for the type of content that they're trying to create. So Vario, headset manufacturer, but these are $3,000, $4,000 headsets. We're talking enterprise grade. Then they're going to get enterprise grade software made for those headsets. So I'd say a part of the consideration is just who are they trying to reach and why.
Yeah. How do you feel like you've seen different sectors utilizing AR in different spaces? It sounds like with education, you have this great example of the posters, more immersive, more interactive. How are like businesses using AR, or how are other companies using AR for maybe advertising or promotional or different activations? What have you seen with that? And what is an example of that?
So I think one of the early industries to adopt it were actually the furniture industry. IKEA came up with an app already 3 or 4 years ago where you can see the whole IKEA catalog and drop those furnitures in your room and see them to scale, so you can fit a bed exactly where it's supposed to be and the furniture exactly, and you can curate the whole thing before you even order it. And I'm sure that definitely increased sales for IKEA because people can see how those things are going to look up. Amazon today, I want to say every second product on Amazon has this ability of see it in your home, if it's a kettle, or if it's an aquarium, or if it's anything, any stereo, anything you can order from Amazon, you can see it today in your home before you order it. I saw beautiful examples of printing shops, such as Whitewall, where you can see a picture. Let's say you took a picture and you want to print it now 50-inch or 60-inch and put it on your wall. So they're going to show you exactly how that 50-inch image is going to look on your wall in a specific glass or frame that you ask for. We have adoption with museums who wants to enhance the collateral they have inside the museums itself with additional information. And they also want people to take some of it home. Most recently, we worked with the Corvette Museum in Kentucky, where people can now deploy full Corvettes inside their home as part of the takeaway from the museum, which is really exciting.
That's amazing.
Really all over. We saw car manufacturers that you could simulate sitting inside a car and looking at the whole dashboard, feeling the different interiors that they have to offer, private jets. The adoption is all across the board.
Yeah, I think a big thing is with COVID and people having to stay home, a lot of just organizations are trying to figure out how do they still make sales? How do they reach people well at home? And in addition to what Liron was talking about with museums or purchasing furniture or looking at pictures to purchase, a big area of adoption has really been fashion and retail, and trying on this AR try-on experience. So a little bit of background information, because I don't think we said this at the introduction, but I work for the Glimpse Group. The Glimpse Group is a virtual reality, augmented reality platform company comprised of 8 subsidiaries. So KreatAR, Liron's company, is one of our subsidiaries. We also have another subsidiary called QReal, and they really specialize in making lifelike 3D content. And they do a lot of branding and marketing activations. And they do a lot on social too. And so companies have hired them to do these AR try-on experiences where you could try on a hat or try on a pair of glasses, and maybe you do this through their site, or maybe you do it through a filter on Snapchat or Instagram. And their AR try-on experience for Bollé, which is a snowboarding glasses manufacturer, was listed as Adweek's one technology to look out for 2021 in terms of talking about this AR try-on experience, because it's not just looking at it, but then you can also try it on and try it out. So see how the glasses look on you, and then use the other end of your camera to see what the environment might look like with the glasses on.
So this try-on experience is really cool, and AR is really cool. Like, you can absolutely trick your vision, and you can trick what you're hearing. But has there been any like research or anything being done to look at maybe touching on the other senses of the experience, like touch, or maybe smell somehow, or taste, right? Like, is there anything that's being done that you guys know about to kind of trick those senses.
So going back to QReal, the company that did that try-on experience, they originally started off as a company specializing in lifelike 3D models of food. And what they had done was capture the food, and maybe you go to a restaurant, you look on the menu, and you can actually see the food in AR. Oxford University used their food for a study and found that customers that look at a 3D model of food as opposed to reading about it on the menu or looking at a picture on the menu, it increased craveability and increased the ability to upsell. So if you were to look at dessert, either read about dessert, see a picture of dessert, view dessert in AR, you were more likely to buy the AR dessert option, or buy the option if you saw it in AR. I also did similar studies with Panera Bread, and Panera found that through the use of 3D AR ads, they were able to see an increase in sales.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's amazing. It sounds like AR is really just bringing the physical, tangible product into your home where you can experience it yourself, whether it's a premium sports car and you can look at the dash and the interior and the exterior, or if it's food on a menu where you can see it before you, even before you order it. And that's really an incredible experience with what AR brings and the different level of engagement interaction you get. Just being able to see the item, I think, at a whole new level.
Well, talking about seeing and visualizing, one thing that Liron's team did was they worked with Meridian Capital, which is a real estate development large company. And well, here, Liron, do you want to talk about it?
Yeah, absolutely. So they came to us and they told us that they're about to do this expo in New York, and they're going to have a lot of people. But what they're really trying to do is to bring people into their businesses, right? Into the restaurants, into their sports club, and give them a feeling of how it is when you're in there. So how do we bring that world into the expo floor? And we did it partly because of the QReal technology, which is photogrammetry, where they can take thousands of pictures of an area and reconstruct it as a 3D model that you can actually walk inside it. We did that for those locations, and we created an experience where you can actually navigate into their expo booth and choose between different experiences to see different locations that they have to offer. I think one place was like a steakhouse, and the other one was a boxing club, and you felt as if you were in the club itself. We took it another step further and made those things interactive. I mean, the steak eating was a little hard to make, but in the boxing club you could punch the little bags, and that would like flap and do some boxing noises, and people were absolutely ecstatic about it. So
yeah, and I think the really awesome thing about what they did there was you're at this huge expo convention for real estate developers, and you're at the Javits Center in New York City, and all these other developers have these very over-the-top stands, and you get to Meridian's and it's empty. All they have are some signs and an iPad. But then when you scan with the iPad, you really see all these elements come to life. And from there, after they did that, and that was back in November of 2020, wow, that feels like so long ago. November of 2020, Meridian just said that they saw such increased engagement and such increased business requests from people wanting to use them for developing, their land.
That's amazing. I should be using AR. I think that's what I'm getting from this, to engage with my audience.
Yeah, there's a lot you can do with it.
I think, Liron, like going back to using the pictures to create the 3D model, I used to work actually for a drone company. And one of the interesting things that they were doing is they can use the cameras on the drones to take overlapping imagery and create 3D models of the outside of buildings. That you can then...
Photogrammetry is used a lot with real estate and reconstructing.
So how else are 3D models created? Is it primarily taking a camera, going around an object or image and capturing photos of it that are then stitched together? Or are there other processes for creating these models for your different tools?
Well, QReal process is proprietary, so I won't be able to explain.
Okay, yeah, no worries.
That, but the idea 30,000 feet high is definitely taking those pictures, using augmented reality, so you know that if this picture was taken at location 000 and I move my camera a little bit here, then I'm at 011 or something like that. And then build up this whole mesh from all the pictures that were taken. Hopefully there is no missing holes or anything like that in between, which can always be awkward. But there's other obstacles and challenges from photogrammetry that QReal, the Glimpse Group subsidiary, was really able to overcome. One, for example, is glass, right? So how do you take a picture of a glass and reconstruct that as a 3D model because of the reflection? It doesn't really know what is reflected and what is the actual surface. So this is something that they do amazing. And there's a whole cocktail bar that they have of different samples, and it's indistinguishable from reality.
So you talked about real estate for a moment.
Yeah.
I remember when HoloLens came out from Microsoft.
Right.
One of the things they showed for it was kind of like builders planning out a construction before it actually gets set up, and then being able to show it to like their clients.
Right.
One of the things I was kind of wondering was, have you guys thought about doing any special development specifically for the HoloLens, because it seems to incorporate a lot of extra technology, especially with the second iteration, that you just really can't find in a smartphone, like people being able to like drag their fingers on the image and actually interact with it. Has there been any like development for that you've been thinking about?
Absolutely. So one of the nice things about HoloLens, as outdated as it is, it's been around for almost 4 years now, and we also have the Magic Leaps in the office, and we always get the latest and greatest technology in our office from all the partnerships we formed over the years. HoloLens is a great example, by the way, of a device that had lidar-like capabilities, a reverse Kinect outwards to recognize your hand gestures using infrared blasting. Now we see the same thing working on the Oculus Quest devices, just by doing image analysis, right? So hand gestures are definitely going to be a big part of it, right? If it's scale, pinch to zoom, all those basic activities first, and then into full body gestures, into really understanding what's happening around you and factor that into the experience itself. So if you were to walk down the street and there is cars moving and people moving, to really know to distinguish between dynamic things to things that are more fixed in space that you can use as anchors.
Yeah, how are people interacting with AR now? Are they like tapping a designated area on their phone to sort of mimic tapping a 3D object? Are they like physically moving their phone closer to something to more like depress a physical button deployed in the AR space? Or are they able to interact with it with their hand and kind of touch it or spin it around or something?
All three are possible right now.
Wow.
It depends on the experience. We try to use different tools to enhance that experience. If we had an interesting project with a hospital, a children's hospital in the Bronx, at that point we were doing all the hand gesture stuff, right? Because the kids themselves wanted to touch, which we also find out that this is something that doesn't necessarily work for the more adult product, the real estate stuff, the product stuff. At that point, adults are just too lazy to just want to tap the screen wherever it is, and always resort to the point of zero movement.
Yeah, and I think that that's something, thinking about who is the end user going to be. We can't give too much details about this project, but we're working with a woman who is a famous psychologist, and we're turning her work into a series of AR applications. And Liron and I were in a discussion yesterday talking about what do we want to do about one of the AR environments. And one option was to make a completely immersive environment where you could move around with your phone and you could look at different objects in the room, and maybe you could pick up and interact with objects. Or we could make something that's more like a flat 360 image, and you don't physically have to move around a lot, but you can look at everything just from the ease of being on your sitting down. And although moving around is more interesting and engaging to us, ultimately the audience that we're developing this for are more likely to be people that are going to just use the app while they're in bed or they're scrolling in a chair. And so we're going to put that limitation of easily just looking at a 360 sphere as opposed to a fully immersive environment.
With the way this technology kind of works, I'm kind of surprised that I haven't seen anybody really take advantage of like projectors. So getting like a big blank square room, get some projections going on, and then have the end user with their phone or something awesome be able to interact with all this different stuff in the environment. Is there a reason why that hasn't been experimented with on a massive scale, or any?
First of all, I'm a big fan. Whatever you're describing right now is called projection mapping, and I always see it on buildings, and it's breathtaking. I always wanted to augmented reality to become that thing, but this thing is really, really, really expensive to implement, because you need a very powerful projectors to project on a building, because you don't have the luxury of sitting in a dark room and right? It's always outdoors, and there is the atmospheric conditions you have to take with, if it's humidity or fogginess or rain and stuff like that. But to really take a building and to create a 3D model of it, and then put all of the arrays of projectors projecting on it, that 3D model, and then create experience on it, is always one of my favorite things.
So it can be done. It's just really
Can
expensive.
be done. Unfortunately, it's a luxury product, and we do see a lot of people Macy's and Harrods and doing things like that in their storefronts. But and there are some companies, some startup companies who are trying to democratize the process. Ultimately, it all comes down to a projector, right? So what business are you in here? You're in the business of selling those projectors. Are you in the business of selling the software to create those experiences of the projection mapping? And so I really hope to see more of that down the road.
Yeah, because I don't know if you've ever seen the show Westworld on HBO,
course.
but one of the things that you'll see, like when humans are interacting with like their computer setups, is they'll literally be like typing on like basically like an invisible keyboard on their table,
Yeah.
and they'll be like dragging pinch to zoom over, stuff like that, and that to me would be really cool implementation for me, because my setup, for my personal setup right now, like I have this big bulky desktop that I made. I got these massive monitors taking up space. It'd be so cool if on the fly I could just customize my setup like that and have like a little home office for when I'm working, change it right into a media room right after for leisure. Like that would be like the creme de la creme experience for me when it comes to AR, because now I'm really being able to minimize what I need in my space.
Yeah, I think for me, what I would like to see is AR glasses that instead of having a computer monitor in front of me, it would just project different monitors hovering in space, so I could virtually create different workspaces. They would all stay in place, and there's no limit. There's no bezels. You can really do whatever you want to create an immersive workplace environment that's tangible and interacting with your current environment as well.
Or have like a FaceTime 2.0 even. Like imagine being able to walk down the street when you're talking to someone, right? When they're not really there, they're literally like in China or something, but you're able to walk down, see the same thing through my eyes, be able to interact with them, give them a virtual high five, me and Stetson always joke about. Like those are the types of experiences I would love to see.
It will definitely come here. And back to what you just said. So Lenovo just came up last week with a proof of concept for AR glasses they're about to release. It's going to be integrated into every one of their laptops. It really enables you to expand your screen, not from just one screen, but have like 5 screens across from you. You type on your keyboard, the main screen is always there, but you also have those other desktop enhancement, which I think is actually going to catch. I see the added value of something like that.
Yeah, and I mean, something cool is you don't even necessarily need a screen. You can just, have the different applications you're using open and floating in space.
Yeah, and one of the other subsidiaries of the Glimpse Group called D6 VR is doing something like exactly like that, but in virtual reality. They call it the Hyper Desktop, and it's designed for traders, and the clientele is mostly banks, hedge funds, where a day trader following hundreds of stocks sometimes do need 5-6 different screens to follow up after all of the information. And in virtual reality, it's working perfectly. And now we just need to adopt it to augmented reality glasses, and everything is perfect.
It'll happen soon enough.
Yeah. All right, well, thank you both for joining us for this special edition of the podcast episode. It was really great talking with you both and hearing more about the augmented experiences you've been working on and how the technology has really evolved over the past few years. So, thank you so much for joining us. It was a pleasure having you on.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
Thank you for the opportunity.
No, thank you. You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah.
If there's any other questions from your followers or anything, please run them by us. We'll be happy to answer anything.
That sounds great. Yeah, so thank you everyone for listening, and we'll be back next week actually with another special guest, and super excited for that episode as well. All right, so take care everyone. Bye.
Bye.
Yes.